Welcome back to Dissect the Question. Which of the following best describes a patient scenario that is most likely to benefit from a drug that blocks smooth muscle inositol triphosphate receptors? So, we should know something about inositol triphosphate receptors. But even before we do that, one strategy is to look at A, B, C, D, E and see if one choice pops out as being different than the other four. So, smooth muscle is the key, isn't it? We have to know a little bit about what smooth muscle does. It contracts, and inositol triphosphate. So if this is a smooth muscle cell over here, inositol triphosphate is stimulated in the muscle after an agonist such as a neurotransmitter or a hormone attaches to a G protein coupled receptors. That's what differentiates smooth and cardiac muscle from skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle is activated by a ligand-gated sodium-potassium channel. The ligand is acetylcholine. Here, the ligand could be acetylcholine, or it could be norepinephrine or epinephrine. And what's the difference? Voluntary muscle is innervated by the somatic nervous system. Involuntary muscle, like cardiac and smooth muscle, are innervated by sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions of the autonomic nervous system. So we should know that acetylcholine is part of the parasympathetic system. And acetylcholine, when it attaches to G protein coupled receptor, it activates phospholipase C, DAG, diacylglycerol, and finally IP3. IP3 is inositol triphosphate. And that sequence of events, we call that an intracellular signal transduction cascade, is going to activate protein kinase C. And protein kinase C is going to, in turn, activate myosin light chain kinase in smooth muscle for contraction. And it's going to inhibit myosin light chain phosphatase for relaxation. So, can we piece this together and say, it seems like we're looking for something that could reduce excitability if it's associated with excess parasympathetic activity. Now, what happens if it's associated with excess sympathetic activity? Well, the neurotransmitter associated with sympathetic activity is a combination of norepinephrine or sometimes epinephrine called adrenaline. Now, when that cascade is stimulated, again, it's the same G protein coupled receptor, but the G protein coupled receptor that responds to sympathetic is not part of the phospholipase C, DAG, IP3, PKC cascade. It's part of another cascade known as the what? Adenylate cyclase, cyclic AMP, protein kinase A cascade. And in that cascade, instead of stimulating myosin light chain kinase like we did here, we inhibit myosin light chain kinase. And we get relaxation of muscle. So now that we know that smooth muscle can be contracted or relaxed, in the case of the parasympathetic system, we expect the parasympathetic system to be able to stimulate this cascade called the protein kinase C cascade, and sympathetic to stimulate the cyclic AMP protein kinase A cascade for relaxation of smooth muscle. Now that we have the background clear in our minds, let's go through A, B, C, D, E and see if something jumps out. Well, we're looking for one thing, one choice, one option that's going to be different than the other four. Let's start going one at a time. A, low blood pressure. To get low blood pressure, vascular smooth muscle that lines the walls of the blood vessels are usually relaxed. Let's look at B, low blood pressure from dehydration. Well, low blood pressure is low blood pressure. To get low blood pressure, again, the vascular smooth muscle is usually relaxed. So it looks like A and B are kind of similar with respect to their smooth muscle, and maybe it's giving us a clue that we're looking at something that's going to not relax smooth muscle, but contract smooth muscle, so that if we block it, the patient's going to benefit. Let's see. Let's go to C. A post-operative patient with urinary retention. Urinary retention means the smooth muscle in the wall of the urinary bladder is relaxed. Remember, when we urinate, we contract the urinary bladder. So urinary retention, just like A and B, are associated with smooth muscle relaxation. Let's go to D. A septic patient with intestinal hypermotility and diarrhea. Well, to me, that's going to jump out immediately as the most likely so far, because hypermotility and diarrhea is a hyperexcitability state. The others are low excitability state of smooth muscle. Now, we can't be sure yet because we still have E, and sometimes there are two correct answers and we're required to select the best one. Sickle cell patient with penile erection for the past 4 hours. Well, penile erection is a state of increased blood flow to the blood vessels lining the penis, inside the penis, an area called the corpus cavernosum, has smooth muscle. And so increased blood flow we get from vasodilation, just like A, B, and C were associated with relaxation of smooth muscle. So is penile erection, relaxation of smooth muscle, so we get more blood flow. Therefore, it's a no-brainer at this point that intestinal hypermotility and diarrhea are different from A, B, C, and E, in fact, opposite to it. And so it certainly seems that's the best option.